Hi, I am Padma Mallikarjunan. I am an enterprise support manager at AWS, and I am based out of Austin, Texas. Welcome to AWS Knowledge Center Live, where we share best practices and troubleshooting tips from AWS support. Joining me today is Hugo Adao, Zebias Zingoni, and Marcel Levy from AWS. Can you give us a quick introduction? Let's start with you, Hugo.
Hi, I'm Hugo. I'm a senior support engineer. I'm located in Ireland and I'm on Amazon for the last 5 years now. And the team where I support customers is SCD, storage and content delivery.
Hi, I'm Zubair Zingoni, an AWS support manager based out of Cape Town, South Africa, and I've been with AWS for just over 5 years.
Hi, I'm Marcel Levy, an AWS software engineer based out of Seattle. I'm a technical lead for the AWS Certificate Manager team. I have been with AWS and Amazon for 10 years.
Thank you, team, from joining us from across time zones. Everyone, our topic today is Amazon Trust Services, specifically the upcoming Amazon S3 and Amazon CloudFront migration of certificate services to Amazon Trust Services. Before we get into the details here, a quick note to our attendees online. Please use the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen to post your questions and share your feedback with us throughout the episode. We look forward to hearing from you. Tobias, can you walk us through what we're going to be talking about today?
Absolutely. So in this session, we're going to cover the implementation of the upcoming change, when this change will be rolled out, possible implications to our customers, and best practice to confirm that your environment is ready for this change. But before we go into the details of this, we're just going to briefly talk about how customers were notified of this change via the AWS Health. Now, in the last 12 months or so, customers would have received various health notifications via different channels about the upcoming change. Just to provide some background to some of our viewers here, AWS Health provides ongoing visibility into customer resource performance and the availability of AWS services. You can use AWS Health events to learn how AWS service and resources changes might affect your applications running on AWS. In relation to the topic for today, AWS Health notified customers about the upcoming change and subsequently prepared customers for the planned migration. The AWS Health dashboard, also known as a PhD, is powered by the AWS Health API and is available to all customers, provides status notifications, and also available to all AWS services across all AWS regions in all availability zones. The PhD is a console, therefore you don't need to write code or perform any actions to set up the dashboard, which is readily available to all authenticated AWS users and gives you a personalized view. It can be accessed from the bell icon to the right of the console navigation bar. AWS PhD can integrate with Amazon CloudWatch events, enabling you to build custom rules and select targets, such as AWS Lambda functions, to define and automate remediation actions. Customers who've got business or enterprise support plans can use the AWS Health API to integrate with in-house management tools or third-party systems. Some of these third-party systems include Splunk, Datadog, and PagerDuty. In addition to PhD Health API and Amazon CloudWatch events, AWS can also communicate to customers via emails, support cases, which can be accessed from the Support Center console. Each one of all these channels will still include remediation details and specific guidance to enable you to take the necessary action as described or as prescribed by AWS. Now, with that overview, I'm going to hand you over to Marcel, who's going to talk about in detail about the upcoming certificate migration. Marcel, you might want to turn up your mic.
Thank you, Zebias. Here's what's going to happen on March 23rd. Both Amazon S3 and CloudFront are going to start presenting different certificates on connection over TLS. And what TLS is, it's encryption in transit. It's what you use in order to keep your data safe when you interact with sites like websites like Amazon or Netflix, for instance. And the certificates that are being issued now are issued under a different trust chain, And what that simply means is that they're issued by a different certificate authority. We're going to change the certificates that are issued by the Amazon Trust Services certificate authorities. You've already seen certificates like these if you've used services like Dynamo or Elastic Compute Cloud, because we've been using these certificates for 2 years now, and they've been issued under the Amazon routes. And what does that actually mean to have a root CA? Well, their certificates are kind of like passports. Your passport is issued by a country. It may have been, say, the Republic of Ireland. And when you see a passport issued by that country, you believe it because you know that the Republic of Ireland is a real country. If I were to show you my passport that I've issued under, say, the Empire of Marseille, you're just not going to believe it because you don't think it's a real country. And certificate authorities are just like that. If a certificate authority is in your trust, your trust store, that means you believe them, you trust those root CAs. And so Amazon Trust Services have been in most trust stores for quite some time now. And to go the extra mile, what we've ensured is that the CAs that issue the certificates that are used by the endpoints used by S3 and CloudFront and others, they're actually cross-signed, which means that if you trust either of the CAs that have signed those certificates, you're going to trust the certificates that we present to you. And so that includes not only the Amazon routes, but also the Starfield Services routes, which we show you here on this slide. And with that, I'm going to let Hugo take it from here.
Thank you, Marcel. Like Marcel said, so this is going to be a rollout. When will we start to roll these changes? That means that when we will start to put the new certificates on Amazon hosts, March 23rd. That's going to be our starting date. That's when we will start to deploy these new root certificates, and of course the certificates that are signed using those routes across all Amazon fleet. As you may understand, and you know, Amazon has thousands of different hosts, servers on all the services. So when you use an Amazon S3 bucket or when you use a CloudFront, you will most likely hit a server. That server will have certificates. And as you can imagine, that's going to happen on a single day. And this means that it's going to be a gradual rollout. We will start on that date. Only a few hosts under a specific region or under a specific POP or several regions or several POPs will receive that update. And with the time, we will push more and more and more until eventually we will have all the certificates updated on all Amazon fleets. This is good because it's allow our customers to always see how this is going, if their applications are reacting, especially when you use different regions, or if it's the case for Amazon S3, or of course different POPs for the case of CloudFronts. This being said, Prabna, so far, do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you, Hugo. Just one question here from bfrosty7. I think your question is related to AWS certification exams. We're talking about the certificates, the TLS certificates that operate within the services. So let me know if I can expand a little bit more on that, or if you have any questions related to AWS certificate exams. I'll also post a link here to certificate exams for AWS. Let me know if I misunderstood your question. And everyone, please feel free to post questions and share your thoughts throughout with us. That's all the questions on the window. Hugo, back to you.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving forward, how can I confirm this readiness? As we said, so that's 23rd of March, that's the date when Amazon will start to update the certificates on their systems. And that's the date when you, user of those services, again, Amazon S3 or CloudFront, using the default domain of CloudFront. That means that if you are using CloudFront against the something.cloudfront.net, that's the certificate that we will change. If you are using your own custom domain or any certificate that is issued by ACM, you don't need to worry because those certificates are already issued with the new Amazon root CA. So how can you test that out? First, you can use, for example, your browser. If you try to connect to one of the tests endpoints that we already have, and you are not ready, this is a potential warning message that you will receive. As you can see, the browser will not be able to establish the TLS connection. So it creates the connection, but when it tries to establish that secure tunnel between your client, your browser, and AWS, it's either an S3 bucket or a CloudFront using the default certificate. If it doesn't trust the certificate that it's getting from Amazon, you will get this error. As you can see, error, a known issue. So your client, your browser is not trusting. What can we see if, in this case, you already have the right CA on your side, on your client, and you try to establish that connection against Amazon, either S3 or CloudFront, and your client trusts that. So your client connects to Amazon, it will initiate the TLS handshake, and because the certificate sent by Amazon is trusted by your client, so that means that you have the root CA on your trust store, the TLS connection will be successful. And as you can see, this is an example. If we connect into that specific endpoint where you can test, that is already a region that contains certificates that are issued by the new Amazon root CA, we will see this padlock there. That means that my connection is secure. So everything between my client, my browser, and in this case, S3 is secure. Other ways that we can test is how, for example, using curl. If I open up my command line, my terminal, if I'm using, for example, Linux or Mac OS, or even Windows, if I have, for example, the curl installed on my Windows, I can test this out. Again, I will issue the command, the same endpoint, the test endpoint that Amazon is providing in a new region that already has these certificates. You can see that it's connected to that IP address, to the S3 bucket, and then we see that part that is trying to establish the SSL connection. And what happens is if my application, if my operation system does not recognize, does not trust the certificate I got from S3, I will get this error, SSL, certificate problem. So I'm not able to get the local issue certificate. I don't trust the certificate that Amazon sent to me. So these are some ways that we can test beforehand, and you can be sure that either my browser or my applications already trust the Amazon certificates. Marcel, can you help us a bit here on how can customers understand if they are ready or possibly not ready?
Absolutely, and I'd like to add that previous slide that Hugo walked you through, it kind of illustrates how your client will construct a chain. So you have the root CA on your side, and that's what this table is showing is which systems and which browsers are already ready. They already have the root CA on the client side. On the right-hand side, we're going to talk a little bit about the situations where you might not be ready. And the first one is in custom applications that use its own trust store. And when I mean trust store, I mean just a bunch of files on a disk, really. In the case of Java, it has its own custom trust store implementation that you can interact with using KeyTool. In the case of most other situations, there are a bunch of files, usually what we call PEM files. They're encoded certificates that are in a directory on the client. And if you have your own custom application, you might have what's called a constrained trust store, meaning you trust fewer root CAs than most browsers do. Like we said before, the Amazon root CA certificates, they are trusted by nearly all browsers and operating systems. I mean, all of them that we know of, going back to a long ways indeed, going back to 2005 in some cases. We have a section here about certificate pinning. As a rule, we recommend against doing that. What a certificate pinning is that beyond just trusting a particular trust store, you are actually saying, I will only connect to a particular certificate. If you have a security need for certificate pinning, we actually recommend using AWS's own product, Private Certificate Authority, instead. And if you reach out to enterprise support or sales team, they can run you through the benefits of using Private Certificate Authority. Back to you, Hugo.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you so much for this. Moving forward. So as we talked earlier, currently, and in this particular case, S3, there are already a few regions that are already returning the new Amazon certificate. So that means that if currently you have an application and your application is connecting to one of these listed regions, like for example, Paris or Stockholm, and everything is working okay, that means that you are already prepared. Because these regions already contain certificates that are issued with the new Amazon root CA. It's a confirmation that once we start migrating the remaining regions to the new Amazon Trust Service Certificates Authority, there will be no impact for you. But still, remember that it's always good to test out any possible applications that you are using to confirm that they are indeed prepared for this, and that they will indeed trust the certificates that are going to be returned once this migration starts to happen. There is also a possibility that you can do is if, let's say, you have currently a bucket that is not in one of these regions. What you can do, you can just go into that region, create a test bucket, and test out. Like, for example, Marcel, can you give us a few hints here on how customers can test and be sure that their applications are ready?
Well, we have in our documentation, we have a test JPEG, which you mentioned earlier, and that is that will definitely tell you if that JPEG shows correctly and you trust the connection to it, you're ready. The other thing you can do is you can create buckets in these regions and connect to those, your own custom buckets, and that will also tell you if you're ready.
Great, thank you. Moving forwards, again, just to summarize, how can you check if you are ready or you might have a problem? You can use different CLIs, for example, OpenSSL, curl, like we saw earlier, and you can use the test URL that we also saw using your browser or any browser. It can be Firefox, it can be Chrome, it can be Edge, it can be Opera, it can be any browser. And like Marcel already mentioned, if you are using custom applications, and for example, using Java, that is very common, application or software is developed using Java, you can use the key tool from Java to confirm that you have the correct certificates on your trust store. Like, for example, you run this command, you send, you target to the path to your trust store, and this will list all the certificates that you have there. Like Marcel also mentioned, all modern browsers nowadays already trust the Amazon CAs, either by having the Amazon root CA or having the Starfield root. That is a good way. How you can check, for example, Firefox, it's a particular case because Firefox brings their own trust store. Overall, all other browsers will use the operation system, the trust store, to know if the certificate that is getting is trusted or not, but in particular Firefox, no, it brings their own trust store. How you can check that? If you open Firefox, you go to Preference, Security, and you will see Certificates. When you click there, then you will see root certificates. And over there, you will get a list of all the certificates that Firefox, in this case Mozilla, trusts. Amazon root CA 1, 2, 3, and 4 are already there. And if you scroll down a bit, you will also see that start field is also there. That's an indication that you are using it's the current version of Firefox, and as we can see, around since 2008 also, all new Firefox versions will have that root CA. You are good to go. Okay. Pradma, so far, any questions from the audience that we might help?
Thank you, Hugo. Yes, I do have a few questions over here. First of all, Ray DB222, thank you so much for your comment. Marcel's explanation on certificates, you found that very valuable. Thank you for sharing that feedback with us. The next question here is from user A Walk in the Clouds. So the question here is there any link or white paper where we can share as a newcomer to AWS? Where can we learn from everything about certificates from AWS beginner to advanced? I would like to point you to our training and certification sites where you can find a lot of valuable resources on introduction to AWS services, starting from the foundational course all the way up to our specialty courses like security and networking specialty. I will throw a link of that in on our chat channel. And before I move to the next question, anything else you want to add, Hugo, Sabias, or Marcel?
Yeah, if you now that I believe you're referring to certification. If you're referring to certificates, the AWS Certificate Manager documentation contains a fair amount of detail. We've tried to make certificates easy, but we do point you to various standards and other documentation out there.
Got it. AWS Certificates Manager. I will make sure that you have a link to that as well. Thank you for your question. The next question here, Zavias, I'm going to go to you for this question. This question is from user Imerial. How can you become a cloud support engineer? Can you tell us about the path to become a cloud support engineer? I will share with you at the end of the discussion a link to the jobs as well about what it means to be a cloud support engineer on the path. Sabai, anything you want to add?
Yeah, thanks for that. Always great to hear, people asking how to become a cloud support engineer, specifically with AWS. It's always nice to hear. So the AWS services that we have, there's more than 100 services that we host, right? But each and every one of those services has got some underlying technology and concepts, that are related to existing IT industry scenarios, right? And so there's different profiles that you can join in as far as becoming a support engineer. So networking, databases, analytics, machine learning, big data, deployment. So across each one of those profiles, you can become a specialist either from a networking background. So ideally, if you've got experience working from a previous organization in those technologies, then you can then join the organization through an interview process where you can then explore the various synergies between that existing knowledge, concepts, and how we use it within AWS within the cloud. So experience working in the environment works. You don't have to be experienced as well. Coming out of academic institutions, you can also go through internship programs, graduate programs to make you become successful as a cloud support engineer. But like Padma said, we'll provide links to a full detailed list in terms of the requirements that are expected and what you'll be doing as well if you're in that role as a cloud support engineer.
Thank you for that, Zeb. Moving to you, Marcel, I have a question here for you from Mr. Builder 10. Thank you for your question. The question is, can you talk a little bit more about the gradual rollout?
Well, as you can understand with services like S3 and CloudFront that have global customers and large scale, there's a lot of moving pieces here. And so they move things gradually and safely for all of their customers.
Thank you very much for that response, Marcel. This next question, this is from Why Play Nice, the username. And the question is related to Starfield Class 2 CA route. Does this mean that the Starfield Class 2 CA route is going away and Amazon Route CA will become the route? Marcel?
Yeah, no, it will not. There are no plans to do that at this time. It is better for our customers to be able to kind of route the chain of trust in whichever way is easiest and most convenient to them.
Thank you. All right, so that's all the questions on the chat window. Back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have a quick demo where we will go through the steps that customers can face while the transition is happening and how they can easily overcome this. Let me just provide here the demo. Okay, so on this demo, like we said, we will go through and follow the steps on how you can get an error or how you can overcome that error. Let's say, for example, you are using Firefox. And let's point Firefox to that test endpoint that we can find on the AWS documentation, where we can test beforehand if my application or if my browsers are ready. Let's use that endpoint. When we go there, if my browser does not trust Amazon Route CA, this is what we are going to get. So I say, okay, something's going on. It's Amazon AWS.com. This should work, but it's not working. What happens is that I'm getting an error code, a known issue. That means that my Firefox is not trusting the certificate that I'm getting from Amazon AWS, in this case, S3, Amazon AWS. So how can I check that? If I investigate deeper the certificate, I see that it's a common certificate that is issued by the Amazon, and in this case, the Amazon CA, the Certificate Authority 1B, that is also signed by the Amazon Root CA 1. Going back a bit, what Marcel talked about, the trust of the certificate. We go and we can see also that is their Starfield root certificate, that cross-signing that we were earlier talking. So we have all of this chain that starts from the Starfield, goes into the Amazon Root CA, and then it goes into the Amazon, and lately, or lastly, the certificate that is sent by S3. So how can we fix this? Simple. And as we talked earlier, Firefox has its own trust store. The fastest path is to just download the latest version of Firefox and reinstall it. So in this case, we will remove the oldest version so that we don't have any conflicts. And once we have removed Firefox, we will download and install the new version, the latest version. This latest version will contain, already contains, of course, the Amazon root CAs, the 4 root CAs plus the Starfield. So we will just start the install process. I can remove and install from scratch, or I can upgrade. If I have an old version and I want to keep all my bookmarks, all the configurations, I can just upgrade, and the effect will be exactly the same. Because what we really want is the new certificate storage from Mozilla that already contains the Amazon CA. So once we have my browser updated or reinstalled with the new version, if I go into my into the endpoint that we tested earlier, the S3 dash ATS dash migration dot S3 dot US3 Amazon AWS.com/test.jpg. we will see that now we will get a different outcome. And voila, my connection between my browser and S3 is now secure because my browser now trusts the Amazon root CA. We can do exactly the same. As you see, like it's verified by Amazon. If I check the certificates, I will see exactly the same root. So now we have the certificate that is sent by S3, that is signed by the Amazon certificate authority, 1B in this particular case, and the issuer is Amazon root CA1. We no longer see the star field because now I trust the Amazon root CA, and that's it, it stops there. As we also talked earlier, how can I check if my certificates are there? We can easily go into the Firefox configurations or options. I will go into privacy and security, and I will scroll down to certificates. In authorities, if I scroll down a bit, I will see that now I have the 4 Amazon root CAs. And this is the one, so this is our goal, that my client or my browser trust these root CAs. Okay, so let's say we have the browser. And I can also confirm that that certificate you can use to trust. As you guys saw, there is also the import. If I don't want to reinstall, I can just download the certificates from the link on the documentation, and I can just manually import them. Another way for me to test if my application is ready using the CLI. In this particular case, let's use the Amazon AWS CLI and using the S3 API. We can use exactly the same endpoints. I'm going to do a head object, basically just to see, to get the metadata from the object on S3. The bucket name, as we know, is the S3 ATS migration test. That's the name of the buckets. The key is test.jpg. Let's pass also the region, that in this case is the Paris region, EU West 3. And because I'm using the CLI, by default, it will make a signed request. And in this particular case, the bucket is not secure. It's open to the public. So I'm going to issue the no sign. I don't want to sign this request. This is going to be an anonymous request. And let's send this command, request to Amazon S3. What happens is, again, because the CLI doesn't have the Amazon root CA, I'm not able to establish an SSL connection against S3. The issues is exactly the same that we had with the Mozilla Firefox. How we can fix this? Simple. Just let's upgrade to the latest version of the CLI. In this case, we recommend the version 2. And once we update, and in particular, the CLI on Windows will also have their root CA bundle that is downloaded when I download the CLI. So let's just finish that. I'm currently upgrading the AWS CLI. And with that upgrade, like we said, now it brings the latest bundle with all the CAs, the certificate authorities. So that will make my CLI to trust Amazon and other certificates. Okay, it's just finishing up to copy the new files. And now that I have the new files, I'm just going to click finish, and let's just confirm that I have the latest version, just doing AWS test version. There it is. And if I run exactly the same command, now, because my CLI contains the root CAs, I'm able to establish an HTTP connection, and I'm able to make that API call against the S3 buckets, and of course, get a successful message from S3. So this basically confirms that, okay, my application is now able to trust the Amazon root CA, and I'm able to establish a successful connection to this region that already contains the root CA, and confirm that, yes, I'm ready, I'm good. When Amazon starts to deploy those changes, I'm already prepared. Okay, and this is the end of our quick demo, just to show a bit more. Padma, any questions from the audience? Anything we can help?
Yep. Marcel?
Yeah, I did want to say one thing. It's a really nice demo, Hugo, and it showed the key principle at work here. The trust that you have for a particular CA. It's a question of files on your host, and if you follow best practices by always having the latest browser or the latest command line client on your host, you're going to trust these certificates. And Hugo's demo did a great, it showed the difference in the chains depending on which CA you trusted, whether it was the Amazon root or Starfield. But as long as you trust one of those, you're going to be okay.
Thank you for that great demo and for the recap.
Thank you.
We do have a few questions here on the chat window. The first question is from Ray_DB222. Thank you for your question. The question is, what happens if we don't trust the certificate authorities by the March date?
Pat, no, I can take that question. If you don't trust any of these certificate authorities, that is, if you don't trust Starfield or the Amazon routes by the March date, then your client should fail connections to any endpoints, meaning the website URL that you try to connect to. So it will fail trying to connect to CloudFront using the default cloudfront.net domain, and it will fail connecting to S3. What we recommend doing is that you mitigate this ahead of time by putting your own custom certificates on endpoints that your applications or services connect to. That is sort of the quickest path to mitigation for you to help ensure that your customers don't have any issues as a result of this. And what that means is using AWS Certificate Manager to import a certificate from issued by certificate authorities that your applications do trust, and using ACM to and CloudFront in conjunction to create an endpoint with the certificate from a certificate authority that you need. Back to you, Pat.
Thank you. Okay, so one more question before we close. This question is from Z300Z. Thank you for your question. Does the Amazon CLI v2 exist for Linux?
Yes. Currently, you have the Amazon CLIs available for Windows, Linux, macOS. You still have the version 1.x, and you can also have the version 2. We recommend the version 2 because it's the latest version that we are now supporting. We still support the other one, but the recommended is now the version v2.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Hugo. So with that, everyone, today we discussed the upcoming Amazon S3 and Amazon CloudFront migration of certificate services to Amazon Trust Services. If there are any questions that were not answered today, please post them on forums.aws.amazon.com and email us any feedback to kc-live@amazon.com. We want to hear from you and tell us what else you would like to see on this show. Thank you for joining us today at AWS Knowledge Center Live. Happy cloud computing.